We have lots to talk about this morning, as usual. So I'm going to let Michelle start off, and she's going to talk to you guys about computer skills things. And she also is going to talk to you about some Dragon stuff. And then I will come in and talk to you guys about Transcriptionist. So, Michelle, I am going to hand over the reins to you.
Okay, so here we go. Can everyone see my screen now? It's just a gray screen with a bunch of icons on it.
Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Okay, so the light makes me look really pale, but I need it so I can see, so I'm sorry. I'm getting old. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go over some of the basic Windows hotkeys, and like I do when I'm training someone in person is I usually go over them in the order of my preference because it's the things that I use the most. And so the Windows button on your keyboard can be very, let me move my keyboard up. It can be very helpful to find things that you need. For example, first thing I use often, it's not with the Windows hotkey, but if I do Alt-Tab, it brings up all of the applications that I have open. This can be important when, as you can see, I have lots of things open, and I'm trying to go through, for example, the real-time scores so that I can have this open and also have open the spreadsheet where I put all of the information in. And so this allows me to go through all the different applications. Now, unfortunately, I have two screens, so you can't see everything that I have, but that's how it works. You just press Alt and then Tab, and it'll scroll through the different applications. Okay, that's my favorite one. That's the one I use most of all. The Windows key and D. Sometimes when you have so many applications open and you just want to get to your desktop because that's where your icons are, or there's something specific you're looking for. For example, here's a sample of an image that I took for a hard setup I did of a computer. And so I wanted to look at it to write my instructions. So I would open this up to look at it. Okay, so if I go back to control, let's see. If I just press the Windows key, it'll bring up my start screen, which has all of my icons. Now, this next one is Windows Tab, and this threw me for a loop the other day because I accidentally pressed it, and when I did, I have two desktops, and so here I am on this screen, and none of my applications were showing up, and I couldn't figure out how to get them back. So I actually pressed it again and went back to desktop 1, which is where I wanted to be. Okay. Windows E. This is one of my favorite hotkeys as well because I always need to go to Windows Explorer to look for something. Looking for a file. You can see we've been working on your dictations and grades over the past couple of days. So that's my most recent objects. Control R is something that I would use, but it's not something that is commonly used. This is the run. This basically opens up sort of the DOS command prompt or lets you run specific items. It's not something that I think you're going to use frequently, but it's good to know that it's there.
Michelle.
Yes.
Do you do the, can you type in WinVer there? WINVER to get your Windows version or no?
Yeah, let's see. Yes.
Yes, okay. That's good to know, you guys, because sometimes updates, certain versions of updates can be difficult to deal with. And so sometimes it's good to know what version of Windows you're on.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that for me, and I probably should have mentioned this to you ahead of time, but I think that with the latest version of Windows, we're having a lot of issues with Dragon. I think, you know.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so that's good to know. So if we ever say, can you tell me what version you're running? You can either do Windows R, type Win, and it'll show you, or you can do Windows I, which will bring up your settings, and go to System and About. And this will also show you, this shows you the type of computer you have, the amount of RAM that you have, and it'll show you the edition and the version you have and when it was installed. Okay. Here's one that's interesting. If I do Alt space, it will allow me to restore, minimize, maximize the screen that I'm on. There are instances, just I'll show you this. This is what we like to call lanyap. So if you're in the, well, this will segue into the taskbar. How about that? So if I go and I hover my cursor over an open application, you should see that a small translucent square comes up showing you what's visual in the program. Now, there are instances where you can do this, and even if you click on the application, it won't show up. But if you right-click on that icon and do maximize, it'll make it full screen. This is people who have multiple screens. This can sometimes be a problem, as if you have, if the majority of the time you have two screens and then you go back down to one, that screen might be off on the other page. So by maximizing it, you're putting it on the main screen. This is something that we see a lot in support because, you know, the screen just won't come up, and that makes it easy to open the application and put it on the main screen. Okay. Now, I do want you to know that there are more basic hotkeys on the list, but to be honest with you, some of them I don't think will be used very often, and you have the reference should you need it. Now, let's go over the taskbar. Okay, so on the taskbar, you could have multiple things in your taskbar. First and foremost, there are things that you have, like, for example, first of all, you have your start menu, which brings up the start. Does the same as the Windows Windows key. It'll bring up this menu. And I basically have everything that I use on a regular basis pinned here. The next button is search, which I really like. I love to be able to just search if I can't find something or don't know exactly where to look for it. I like to just be able to come here and search for what I'm looking for. So if I type in Dragon, it'll pull up Dragon for me. I mostly use it for control panel because it's not hard, it's not easy to find anymore. This is an old, it's sort of an old thing from the previous versions of Windows. Sorry, I'm in a loop of Dragon opening. Okay, and then you'll notice that we have all of the icons that are open, and that's not too big of a deal. But if you ever want to go to Task Manager to see what you have running, sometimes your computer might run slow. So if I usually right-click on my taskbar and I can go to Task Manager, and if there's something that's running that I don't want running, I can simply come in and close it.
And that's something that's normally used when something is locked. When a
Right.
program is locked and what we call frozen, oftentimes we'll go to the task manager and end the task there because it won't just close.
Right. And that's typically the only time I use it, is to close an application that's not responding well.
Me too.
Okay, and over here on the right side of the task manager, this also shows applications that may be open and running. These typically are the things that run on startup. For example, if you look at my taskbar, I have TeamViewer, which is what we use for support, that runs all the time on my computer. I have OneNote, which I use frequently, and Dropbox. These are things that run every time my computer boots up. Typically, you would see your antivirus here. And I'm realizing that my antivirus is not running right now, which is probably not a good thing, but I'll deal with that later. Now, the taskbar is, in my opinion, it's kind of like my launching pad for everything on the computer. It's where I go to start applications typically. And that's why I have, my icons on my desktop, but also on start. So I don't have to minimize everything to get to my application list. So the task manager can be your best friend. Now, does anybody have any questions about the task manager? So let's talk about antivirus software. Did you have any questions, Adria, or comments?
No, ma'am, you're doing a great job.
Okay. So for the antivirus software, Windows 10 has its own antivirus software, and I'm going to open that up. Well, I actually don't run it, but it's called Windows Defender or Windows Security. And so this is probably the only application that doesn't interfere too much with Dragon. And I think for you guys, for our other customers who are doing dictation and also recording while they're doing that, we suggest that the antivirus be turned off while you're dictating, but this is not going to, it should not affect you. Is that your opinion, Adria?
I agree completely.
Okay. So what's important to remember about the antivirus is that when your computer is booting up, typically you'll find that it's slow in the beginning. And that is because when you boot your computer up, usually the antivirus will scan your computer. That slows it down. If you're running any type of cloud service, such as Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, it has to start up in the beginning when your computer is booting up, and that can cause it to slow down. So my suggestion to you and to all voice writers is, when you get to work, turn your computer on and give it a couple of minutes to boot up before you try to go in and do a dictation, because it will make everything slower if you're trying to open Dragon as all of these things are running. And so you just need to give it a little time. Think about when you wake up in the morning. I know when I wake up in the morning, I need a good 5-10 minutes to actually get out of bed, because I have to wake up and get my bearings. And so that's basically, the computer doesn't need 5 to 10 minutes. It's not as old as me, but it does need a little bit of time. So just keep that in mind, because I have a lot of people who turn the computer on and try to go directly into real time, and Dragon just goes womp, womp, womp. And you just have to give it a minute to wake up. Now, there are other antiviruses that are available to you. And Adria, do we know what antivirus they're using?
I don't. No.
Okay. A couple of antiviruses that we find are really, in our opinion, too limiting. They slow the computer down completely. Is McAfee and Norton Antivirus. So those are not necessarily the best ones to use, but they won't affect you like they would a court reporter. But one thing I do want to say about antivirus is you need to be cognitive of what you're clicking on when you get on the internet or even via email, because if you get a virus, it can affect everything. Diane is here in the meeting, and I'll give y'all a little anecdote about years and years ago, probably 18 years ago, maybe not that long, but close to it. She had a problem, and we worked for a couple of hours, and then she told me she had had a virus, but it had been cleaned off of her computer. And so I started poking around in her computer, and the virus had affected every executable on her computer. And so though she thought she had remedied the virus and it was gone, it had made such a deep impact that no matter what she did, her Dragon user just didn't work well. And she wound up having to regen her computer. And then we had to reinstall Dragon. And remember those Dragon exports that you guys have been doing? Well, she had been exporting her users and keeping them separate by date. And we had to go back 3 months because that's how long it had been since she had gotten the virus. And we had to go back before she got the virus for the user files to actually be okay. And so it's very important that this is a work computer. Be careful what you click on. If something seems suspicious, if I go to a website and it seems suspicious, I immediately close out of it and run a virus scan. So just keep that in mind. You want to keep your computers nice, fresh, and fast. And so if you look on the sheet that Adria sent out today, there's also a list to finding the perfect antivirus for you. Now, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Okay, it looks like Leary said that y'all are using Windows Defender. Okay, so because y'all are using Windows Defender, I would like to show you something. So I'm going to go back to Windows Defender, and I'm going to go back to the Windows security settings, virus and threat protection, and I'm going to go to, I'm not turning mine on right now because I do have a third-party antivirus that's managed by our network, and I need to just turn those settings back on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Manage Settings, and I want to show you something that we have done for you. If everyone would go to this, let me back up for a second. If we go to Start and Settings, if you would all follow along on your computers. And then we'll go to Update and Security. Okay, there we go. Now, go to Windows Security and go to Virus and Threat Protection, and then go to Manage Settings under Virus and Threat Protection Settings. And under Exclusions, you should have a list of exclusions listed there. I don't have it because I use third-party software, but this is where we go in and we, and I believe that we did this on you guys' computers. Is that correct? Do you guys see exclusions in this list? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. What this does is it protects the folders so that they're not scanned for the virus, so it doesn't slow them down if it runs a scan while you're in the job. And so that way, it's not going to affect your work. And so that's important. Does anybody have any questions about antivirus? That's it for the Windows things, the computer skills class that we were going to talk about. So I'm going to close out of this screen and I'm going to open up Dragon. And we're going to talk about the Acoustic Optimizer. So I'm going to open up my primary user. Accuracy tuning is a tool that Dragon has that basically will take your acoustic data, your language model, and it will optimize them for better performance. The thing about it is you have to have enough data in the program for it to be able to run those tools. And it is also my suggestion that you back up your user prior to running this for in case it has negative effects. Doing the accuracy tuning, if you're familiar with like optimizing the computer, it's basically shuffling everything in your user profile around for best performance. It's taking the corrections you've made, it's trying to make them organize them in a fashion so that it can improve your recognition. Now, sometimes if you run the accuracy tuning, it may have a negative effect. And what we have found is if it does have a negative effect, that is because there is something inside your user that is corrupted that you just didn't see, that the acoustic optimizer or the accuracy tuning brought to the forefront. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to run the accuracy tuning. I'm not sure that I have enough information in my user to do so, but anytime you do this, you want to do a Dragon export. So I have Dragon open. I'm going to go to Profile, and I'm sure you all know how to do this already. Manage User Profiles. I'm going to highlight the user profile I want to export, and I'm going to go to Advanced and Export. Let me just put in a flash drive. I have a cute little Mickey Mouse flash drive that a friend of mine gave me. Big Disney fan. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and browse to that E drive, and I'm going to click on OK. And it'll export my user profile. And depending on how much work you've put into your user, it could take that long to back up. Also, what I have discovered, the different flash drives that you have, okay? There's USB 2.0 technology and USB 3.0 technology. And if you're using a USB that is USB 2.0, if you look inside here, it would be a black tongue inside. In this one, this is my newest USB drive, it has a blue tongue, and usually the USB 3.0 is blue on the inside. Those will work faster because they're faster technology. And I'm assuming that my Mickey Mouse is probably USB 2.0. And that's why it's taking long, aside from having a big file. And also, if you're copying things off to an external hard drive, which I don't have one at my desk right now, but those are the same. Based on the technology, it will take longer to copy files to a USB 2.0 drive. Okay, it's almost done. I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Come on. Okay, there we go. Now we have the user profile backed up and in a safe place. So I'm going to close out of this. And I am going to go to Audio Launch Accuracy Tuning. Okay. And here's what it tells me. There's no new data in the acoustic archive. Acoustic Optimizer does not need to run. Womp womp. Okay, so but it can do language model optimization. Okay, so there are two, and we may have said this already, but I'm going to go over it again. There are two components to Dragon. There's the acoustic data, and then there's the language model optimization, the language model data. The acoustic data is all the phonemes that Diane talked about, all of your voice attached to those phonemes, the correction that you do that's saved, that is part of the acoustic information. The language model information is the context, the word usage, and things of that nature. So that's the two components of Dragon, and they're both very important. So I'm going to go ahead and allow it to do the perform language model optimization. Okay, so it can't be done. So I'm going to try one of my other users. And this time I'm not going to back it up because I live on the edge. And we'll just see how it goes.
Likes to live on the edge.
In all fairness, I do have a backup on the computer of it. So if something happens.
Be honest, Michelle, half the reporters in America have your user. You can get it back.
Yes, I can. But see, I don't. Oh, here we go. You have to have your USB device plugged in order to open the Dragon.
So if you created the user with your Sound Blaster Play, then your Sound Blaster Play has to be plugged in order to open it.
Correct. And so I just plugged it in, and I'll click on it and select it. I'll be honest with you though, Adria, that user profile that everybody has is not on this computer. I had to clean Dragon recently, and I didn't put it back on.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have to clean Dragon. I did.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. So now I'm going to go to Audio and Launch Accuracy Tuning. And this time it gives me the option to do both of them. So I'm going to click on Start. But I'm not feeling like it's going to have enough data in it. But who knows? And this can take some time. So it's telling me it can't run the Acoustic Optimizer. Adria, do you have a use? Well,
yeah, I have multiple users. I can see if mine would run the optimizer. It may not. Let's see.
While you're doing that, I'm going to import my Smarty Pants user and see if I can.
Okay.
And as much correction as you guys have been doing, you should be able to at least do the Acoustic Optimizer one. But again, if you're going to do it, make sure that you back up your user ahead of time, because the suggestion is that you run the optimizer and then you check your recognition, because if you notice that there's a decrease in recognition, then you would want to go back to your previous user, because you don't want to have a decrease in your recognition. Because you'll notice, like, once you start working, a 5% drop in recognition is very noticeable, because that's 5% more that you have to type or edit. Okay, so
Okay, so can you guys see my screen now with the Acoustic Optimizer up?
Oh, we see it. Yes.
What I did was I went to, let me close this since I haven't started it yet. I went to vocabulary and then launch accuracy tuning. And then it comes up and it says the acoustic model optimizer adapts user profile files to improve recognition accuracy. This adaptation is a resource consuming operation, and it is preferable to run the acoustic and language model optimizer when you are not actively using your computer. And so both are checked, and it says approximate runtime 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So I'm going to click on start. And basically it just runs. There's nothing more you have to do. Oh, hasn't been used enough. That's funny, because that's my primary user. So I don't know why it's saying that.
I think a big part of it is how much correction you do, you know? I haven't ran, like the language model optimization, I haven't ran documents through my user in quite a while. So, and I mean, we certainly don't use it as much as working voice writers.
No, certainly not.
So you'll find that you may not have this issue because you use it more frequently than we do. And to be quite honest with you, when we dictate for probably, I think the most I dictate is for 30 minutes at a time. And that's like doing the real-time coach dictations, dictating, correcting, dictating again, in the same job, but it's not, hours on end.
Right. The only other thing that it looks like it's going to do it on one of my newer users.
Okay.
Nope. So it looks like what it does is when you hit start, it goes and examines if it's got enough to work with. And if it doesn't, then it tells you, sorry, there's just not enough. And you can just click on done. But while we're still in Dragon, I want to just point out that when you click on mode, there's a normal mode, dictation mode, command mode, numbers, and spell. We only ever use dictation mode. And when you go into Transcriptionist and Dragon opens up for you, Transcriptionist actually makes sure that you are in dictation mode. But the difference between dictation mode and normal mode is that when you're in normal mode, you can actually accidentally make a command go off. Now, we've deleted most of the commands that we find offensive, meaning we find them to be dangerous to you in your dictation because they will do something instead of write something. So that's why we delete all those commands that we delete way in the beginning when we created your user to begin with. So remember that when you create a new user, if ever you create a new user, you need to go through the whole process of following the new user creation FAQ, because deleting those commands is the last thing on the last page. So you really need to go all the way through it every time you create a new user so that you do not forget those commands in the user. You can always go delete them, but you don't want that catching up with you while you are dictating, because it's really annoying. Some of them are more annoying than others. And if you get in the habit of dictating for long periods of time, I know that I don't always look at my text. And so if you are dictating and not looking at your text, then you can be dictating and not realize that all of your words are now being laid down together. There's a command called no spaces on that does that. And I've had many students ask me, why would they even make such a command? When would you ever need such a ridiculous thing? I agree. But remember that Dragon Naturally Speaking was created for disabled people who can't use their fingers, their hands. And so they do everything by voice. So let's say that they're giving somebody their phone number. They wouldn't want spaces between each number. So they would say, no spaces on 337-852-9049. No spaces off. And then they would continue dictating. We don't do that at all. So we don't mess with that because we find that it's more dangerous than it is good. That's why we delete all of those commands for you. So now we are going to talk about the index feature of Transcriptionist. So when we are indexing, you may or may not have to create indexes for your transcripts. If you don't, yay. But if you do, there is a very easy way to do the indexing in SpeechCat. And so I am looking for a file that, what I'm doing right now is I imported a file that has exhibits in it so that I can show you, so that I have something to show you as I'm creating the index. And this specific file has been cleaned up, meaning that every Q has been replaced with an asterisk, Q asterisk. Every A has been replaced with an asterisk, A asterisk. Every speaker has been replaced with the asterisk, speaker one asterisk. So what we've done is we have replaced all markers with their written form. And we do that to do what we call clean up a file to run it through Learn from Specific Documents, which is a feature of Dragon that we'll be talking about more in an upcoming class. And what this does is it teaches Dragon context. And so it's very valuable. And what I did was I brought it in and I used the reformat fix corrected markers feature of Transcriptionist, which what it does is it takes all of those written forms and turns them into properly formatted text. And this is obviously a long document, so it's taking a minute to do that. Okay, so in order to create an index, first we need to know what we're going to index. So what kind of things are we going to be indexing? I'm going to do Control Home to go to the top of the document. So as we go through the document, definitely exhibits are generally indexed. And we can generally say what list we want what exhibits to be in. So let's say that I'm going to make list number 1 my examination. So I'm going to see if there are any examinations in this document. I'm pretty sure there will be. And then list number 2, I'm going to make that plaintiff's exhibits. And then number 3, my third list will be defendant's exhibits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control F to bring up the find box. And I'm going to look for first examining. Okay, so this would actually be a redirect examination by, let's bring the name up here. So I actually want to add this examination to my index, and I'm going to add this to my examinations index, which is index 1. So I would do Alt I 1. Now if I go index, show index page 1, you can see there is what I've just indexed, and it's on page 42 right now. So now I can go Control F again and look again for examination to find next. And here's another examination by. So I'm going to highlight that. Alt I 2. Oh, nope, that was supposed to be in 1. So now if I go to show index page 2, I accidentally put this here, so I'm just going to delete that one because it needed to be on 1. And if I hit the numeric 1, it'll bring me back to index page 1. And now you can see that my first redirect is on 42. The examination by Mr. Moss is on 57. So now I can, again, Control F, examination, find next, and that's the one we just got. So Control F, I'm gonna just do examination by, then Control F, that way it'll be right. Okay, so now we've got a new examination by. Oh, this is a direct examination. There we go. So I'm gonna highlight all of that. Alt I 1.
No, that should be
Control F, and I don't want to look for just direct examination. I want to look for all examinations. So find next. There we go. Gonna highlight Alt I and the number 1. And if I highlight just the word examination and do Control F, it'll already have the word examination there, so I can do find next. Alt I 1. And you can just keep going back and looking at your index page, and any of this can be altered. So you can go in, and if you want to change anything or add anything to it, you can do that here. And we would just go through our entire document doing that, doing Control F and finding the next examination. And this is a really long document, so there are several of them in this document. And Alt I 1.
Page 1.
And there you go. So I'm just adding them and adding them. And let's say that I wanted to add my exhibits. I would do Control Home to go all the way back to the top. And this time I'm going to look for Control F, and I'm going to look for an exhibit. Find next.
No.
See here, they're referring to an exhibit. They're not actually adding an exhibit. So I'm going to do Control F and go to find next. Then look at exhibit number 2 again. They're just referring to an exhibit. They're not entering one. So I'm going to do Control F again. Exhibit, find next. Again, they're just referring to it. Again, they're referring to it. Well, we're just going to pretend that they're entering an exhibit here. So I'm going to do Alt I because I'm adding it to the index. But let's say that this is a plaintiff's exhibit, and that is going to be list number 2. So I'm going to hit the numeric 2. And then I'm going to highlight just the word exhibit, Control F, find next, highlight the exhibit number, and this is plaintiff's exhibit number 22, Alt I 2, and let's say that they are saying that exhibit number 22 is a letter. You could go to index, show index page 2, and you could put your cursor in after plaintiff's exhibit number 22, and you could type in letter from Mr. Iman. There. Apply and OK. So you can add to any of this as you see fit. And then once you've gone through your whole document, adding things to your index lists. And keep in mind that your indexes can contain all sorts of things, right? It can be objections. You can have a list of objections. You could have a list of when you went off the record, like breaks. You could have a list of those. You can have up to 9 lists, and you can create whatever lists are requested by your client. You may only have need to make 1 list. You may have need to make all 9 lists. I don't know that I've ever had a civilian use all 9 lists. The military absolutely uses all 9 lists for different things that they want organized in a certain fashion. And that is the whole idea of creating the index. You have to have the other thing that is required in order to create an index is that you have to have an index include file. So I'm going to close out of here. My indexes are going to remain there. Every index I've created is going to remain there. I'm going to go to View and click on Include Directory Setup. In the Include Directory Setup, I have all of my include files for cover pages and certificate pages. I also have a few index files. So let me go and find an index file here. Here's an index. So I'm going to open that. It's asking me what style I want to use it with. So I would need to have a style with an index. I usually try to write with index when I have something with an index in it. So this is a sample index. Not all indexes look alike. Not all indexes look even remotely alike. Some do, some are very, very different. When you create an index file, you're going to create it based on what you need. Some courts will mark this, for instance, what I'm showing you right now is a plaintiff's witnesses. So when there's a witness index, sometimes they'll say, well, this is when they were on direct. This was when they were examined on cross. This was when they were examined on redirect. And this is when they were examined on recross. SpeechCat does not do, or Transcriptionist does not do the 4 different columns very well. So generally what we do is we put them more in an order that we can deal with SpeechCat, and we may say, well, we're going to put direct in one list, cross in another, redirect in another, and recross in another. Some people will go ahead and mark their indexes, and they will just use the index that they create to put in the page numbers in the 4 columns that they want. It's really your preference. The way we insert an index list is we would click on Insert Index List, and we would go and click on the index list number that we want, and it would put it in here. And if we were going to use this index here, let me make some changes. Let's say that this isn't what we want. Let's say that we're going to do we're going to do examinations here. And I might want that underlined and bolded. And then we'll do plaintiff's exhibits. And then this would be defense exhibits. And then the rest I'll just do without here. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now I'm going to return to my sample document here. And I'm going to go ahead and insert my index. So I'm going to hit the F11 key, which will bring up everything that's in my include files. And I will go and click on AA Hearing Index Open. And this is the index I just created. It looks like there's a hard page there. Okay. So this is the way I want it to look. Now what I want is I want to actually insert the index. I want it to take the index lists I've created and plop them into my document. So I'm going to do create indexes. And it's saying, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And it's going to go ahead and put the indexes I've created in here. And it's going to blink and wink at us while it's doing all its magic, going and getting the updated page numbers if need be. I don't think I actually entered anything onto the index 3 list, so that will be empty most likely, but we should have things in index 1 and index 2. Michelle, am I missing anything?
No, not that I can see. But you know how much I love indexing.
One of the things that some people do is they'll have the index as a part of their cover pages. So when they bring in their cover pages, the index will just automatically be a part of their cover pages. Like the first page will be what they call the caption, which is the judiciary of Trinidad versus Tom Jones, all of that stuff. And then the second page may be your appearances, everybody's name that's in the court today and the addresses of those parties, especially the attorneys. And then the transcript, well, no, the index would be there then before the transcript. For most American firms, some American firms do put the index in the back. I refer to the index that most officials use. It's really more of a table of contents, though the word index is what the industry uses, though someone outside of the industry would say, why do they call it an index? An index goes at the back of a document. I happen to agree with that, but nobody asks me how they want their transcripts. They just tell me, and I have to do it. So this is the way American companies do it. I've never really been told if you guys do it differently or not in Trinidad. And I've never really seen a transcript created from the judiciary. So I don't know how you guys do it, but this is the way most in the US do it. So as you can see here, all that really I needed to do was push over my page numbers a bit, and that got them where I wanted them to be. There's only one tab after the text. So depending on how long or how short the text is, you'll have to insert however many tabs you need. But that's how you insert the index. And let's say that you insert the index, and then during your proofing phase, you say, ooh, well, I forgot some things. Well, you can go and add those things to an index. Let's do that. Let's see. Let me go to much further down here. Let's see. Let's see what page. Here we're on page 76. So I believe that's where that was about where my last one was noted. So I'm going to do control. Let's see. Let me highlight examination by. I think actually 76. This one would not have been on there, but I'm not sure. So let me just do this examination. Control F. Find next and highlight. Alt I, and examinations is 1. And then I'll do a few more examinations. Control F, find next.
Adria, while you're doing that, I just want to let you know that they have stated that they also put the line numbers as well as the page numbers on their indexes.
The line number as well as the page number.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me make a note of that. Okay. Thank you for that, by the way. And so what you could do, you could still add it. Alt I1. No, this is, yeah, that's an examination, right? So just notice down here, if you would, that we are on page 143, line 15.
Oh.
So if I go to index, show index page 1, and I go to the Mr. Hovey that I've just added, and you can see that it's on page 75, I could type in line 15.
15, because it's free,
And I could do apply.
Right.
Mhm.
Let me put apply. Okay.
Oh, it looks like,
You might have to add it in the
I might have to add it
item.
on this side because it
Right.
looks, this side can be updated. So I would have to do line 15. Whoa.
That's list 5 though. Yeah, we might not be able to change. Oh,
Well, see, when I typed in,
you probably wouldn't put line because line would be at the top, but you know what I mean? Like at the top where it says page, you'd probably have a column for line.
oh, right. The thing that I'm noticing, Michelle, is that if I type in another number, it's going to that
Okay.
page. So that is something I'm going to have to talk to the programmer about.
Yeah, and we may need to, I mean, we can maybe ask for.
I can ask him to add a feature that also puts the line number in there for you guys. So we'll see about getting that done so that it makes your job all that much easier. So thank you for letting us know that. We'll definitely do that. Let me look for an exhibit now. Okay, I've gone too far. No more exhibits. So control. Let's see. Home. Okay, so I've added a few things. So I'm going to do index, refresh indexes. Yes.
One thing I will say for your index to be more accurate is if you bring in your, if you finalize and bring in your cover pages, it's going to account for those pages. So if you have 5 cover pages, like the title page, the appearance page, and whatever else that you might have, it's going to account for those pages.
I'm going to just put in some random information here so that I can show you. How a cover page of yours would look. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do job and finalize, and that's going to bring in my cover pages as they're supposed to look. So here we go. Here's our first page. Looks like I may have to update these because not everything came in. So something must be awry. So let's say that I wanted to change the font. I could highlight all, do edit, and change font. If I wanted it to be Courier New and 12 regular, okay. You could do Control A and change it to a different font altogether, like Arial. Regular, okay. So you can definitely control that based on how you want it to look. And so now that I've got my cover pages in there, I don't have the index in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do F11. And I'm going to insert my index file. And now I'm going to go ahead and do index, create indexes so that it can refresh my index. And that's going to take a minute. While this is completing, I do want to remind you all that you should be exporting your Dragon profile from Dragon Naturally Speaking at least once a week. When the index is done doing its thing, I'm going to go ahead and go over that with you real quick before we finish today, because that's something that you should be doing. Keep in mind, and I think I've said this before to you, but I want to say it again. What you're doing right now by dictating all of these dictations at speeds that are ever rising, and you're doing correction mechanism as the speeds rise, this is really the perfect way to build a user profile. And it's something that you will not have access to after the class. And so that is why we ask you to export your user profile every week and to try to maintain them weekly, not write over them, because this is something that you want to keep forever so that you can always go back and start a new user profile with one of these users that you're creating right now. Because this process of dictating at a speed, doing 5 or 10 dictations at a certain speed, doing correction of those dictations, and adding words that are misunderstood and correcting words that are misunderstood. This process is the perfect way to build a user profile. And so when it happens to you, and it may not be anytime soon, it may be years before it happens to you that your user profile becomes corrupt, but it will eventually become corrupt. It happens to all of us if we do it long enough. You will want to be able to pull in the stuff that you're doing right now to create a new user based on the things you're doing right now, because it's so useful. So there is my index, which again, I would need to tab over my numbers to make them line up with the word page. And I can keep in mind that you can edit what these say to your heart's content. There's no end to your ability to edit and make changes to all of this. And from here, we would literally just save and go to present, which is going to dump us into Microsoft Word. That's the word processor that you guys use, that we use. And it is going to open up. There we go.
Yeah, there's questions about how the
what?
How the line numbers show up on the pages, and these don't have line numbers.
Yeah, this one doesn't have line numbers. So let's say that we wanted to manually put it in. We would definitely want to create a new page here, because normally we only want page numbers. Now that depends.
Look, Adria, the section break didn't have the right number of asterisks. That's why it didn't come in properly. So you see right there?
I sure do.
So maybe we should go back to scope, edit, and oh well.
I don't know if, well, we can, but it's good to know that all you have to do to turn on line numbering is go to the layout tab, line numbers, and restart each page, and there's your line numbers.
But does it go all the way from the beginning, or where you started at without a section break?
It goes all the way to the beginning, yeah. Okay, let's go back. So now I need to go to View, Show Files, and I need to hide my present file. so that I can go back to edit. And what Michelle was saying was that my section break, which is right here, did not have 2 asterisks, which is why Microsoft Word did not read it. So now that we've put it there.
And I want to say something, Adria, if you don't mind. When you're editing a document and you bring it in, like look here, the section break is the same. When you're editing the document after you have finalized, make sure you don't delete the asterisk, asterisk, section break, asterisk, asterisk, because this is what tells Word this section has line numbers, this section doesn't, and so on and so forth. So that section break should never be deleted. And it's asterisk, asterisk, section break, asterisk, asterisk. So when you're editing, don't delete it.
This one didn't have the right number of section breaks either.
And I think they said they're supposed to have 50 lines on the page.
How many?
50? Is that correct? Yeah. I guess they single space.
They must. Control 1 single spaces.
See, so there must be, they're saying that there's only a border on the first page, so there's probably was a missing section break after the first page.
Well, the section break was on the first page, but what I did was I put the index in front of it.
Okay.
I probably should have put the index behind it.
Okay.
So that was my doing. And I'll have to examine this to see why. Let's see. This is still only 49. They must use a much smaller font.
What font? Does anyone know what font y'all use? Yes, I will tell y'all this much. You've asked about the header. Unfortunately, we cannot affect the header. So we put the note of what needs to go there so you can add it manually, but unfortunately, we cannot change that.
Okay, Arial at 10 gives them 59 lines. How many did they say they had to have?
They say Courier New 12, and sometimes they end up with 49 lines per page. But that's just about editing the margins, I would think. We could.
Looks like I can expand it to 50, but it doesn't look like it's going to give me more than 50 with 12.
No, I think 50 is what they use, right? They use 50 lines per page. And they were also asking about affecting the header automatically.
No.
Yeah.
The only way we can do that is with print sets. And I don't think that they wanted to use print sets. So no, they will have to learn how to affect the header themselves, which all you have to do is double click on the header. And then you would change it to today's Wednesday, and would be
Today's the 4th.
04 of March 2020. And then you'd have to put the case number here. And then you could just close the header and you're done. I'll have to look at all of their styles again and make sure that they're updated with the current Microsoft Word, because Microsoft Word has changed since we started. So I'll go through them all again and make sure they're all looking good. But that's our lesson for today.
Oh.
So.
Oh, you know what I did want to say? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Have we already gone over importing the Dragon user profile? Because we talked about exporting it.
I'm not sure, Michelle, you want to do that?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to go over it again. I guess it would be a good time to ask questions, but um, just so you know, we talked earlier about doing the Acoustic Optimizer and exporting the user. And I realized we didn't say, well, if the user is not good, how do we recover? So what we would do is we would open Dragon.
They let me make you the,
Oh,
you want me to just show them since?
yes, that would work.
That sounds good. Well, first let's export, shall we?
Yes, go to Profile, Manage User Profiles. I already did export earlier though. So go to Advanced, highlight the profile you want to export, go to Advanced and Export. And find a location. And I just want to say, you might say we're going over this frequently, but it's very important that you do this because as a matter of fact, just in the past couple of weeks, I've had a couple of users who have had various problems, and we've had to restore from a previous user. And when someone doesn't have a user profile that they can restore from, they're distraught because they have to start all over again. So, and not that it takes long to start a new user profile, it's just if you've added words, if you've deleted words, especially if you've deleted words, those you have to go through and delete again. And so having a good user profile export is essential. So Adria just completed the export. And so let's close out of this, Adria, and we'll go back to, if you've done this, you've exported your user, you've ran the Acoustic Optimizer, and you find that your recognition is not what you expect, you could go open up Dragon, go to Profile, Manage User Profile, Advanced, and Import. We will scroll down, find where we exported the user profile to, select that user profile folder, and click on OK. Now, if we're trying to import a user profile that already exists, it's asking, do we want to override it or do we want to import it as with an alternative name? I typically would, and I'll get Adria's comment on this, but I would import it and put today's date or good user or some indication of restored good user. And then import it. And okay, now, if this were the case and we knew that the original profile was not good anymore, I personally would go in and delete it. Because if you have lots of profiles, sometimes it gets confusing as to which one is the good one. Also, when you're going into Transcriptionist, sometimes you will click on the wrong user and wonder why your recognition is not so good. So I'm a believer in simplicity and taking out what's not good. Now, you cannot delete the user profile if it is open. So we would close out of the Manage Users Profile box. We'd go to Profile, Open User Profile. We'd open the one that we just brought in, the one with today's date, because you cannot delete a profile that's open. Okay, and then we would go to Profile, Manage User Profile, and then we would highlight the profile we wanted to delete, and we would delete it. And voila, it's gone. So we would close out of this, and that's it. That's how you import a user. Do you have anything to add, Adria?
I really just agree with you completely. I think that I hope that you all understand that we harp on this for a really good reason. At the beginning of this year, I was contacted by a student in a previous cohort, and her user had become corrupted. And she no longer had a user export, even though we ask you to create these exports and create these exports and create these exports. She no longer had one. And that was because when class is over, the judiciary gets your computers. Yeah. They take them from you and they get them and they make changes to them. And sometimes they add new users so that all of your work, everything you've saved from this course is gone. If that concerns you, it should. I have let them know that that's not a great idea. I've asked them to change the way they do things, but I have no real power there. So what I have asked all of you as of the beginning of this course is to make sure that you invest in your own flash drive. And I suggest that you put everything that you value that is on your computer on that flash drive before you have to give that computer to the judiciary to set up for when you go to work. Because there's nothing I can do about you not having your resources. Only you can protect yourself by making sure you copy all of this onto those flash drives. If you need help, I am certain that Rochelle would help you get that done. So please do that, because that's the only way you can protect yourself for the future. That customer had to start from scratch. And all of the work she did building these users, all of the dictation she did, that was all lost. I hope that that doesn't happen to any of you. And it shouldn't, because we're warning you right now in advance. So please take this opportunity to make sure that your resources are always on a flash drive that you possess, that you will not have to give to anyone, so that everything you've learned here, you can keep with you for the future.
Okay, Adria, we did have a question.
Okay.
I don't remember who asked the question, so I apologize. It was Natasha. She asked why we wouldn't overwrite the user profile as opposed to importing it and renaming it.
Well, you certainly may overwrite it, but if you import it with a different name, then you have the ability to test to see which one is the better user. And how do you do that? If you do the same dictation with both users and you count your errors, that should tell you which is the better user. If you override it, then you do not have the chance to compare them at all. So delete is easy. Once you overwrite it, it's gone. And that's fine if that's the way you want it. But what if you imported one that is not better, but worse? Keep in mind what Michelle said earlier, about her experience many years ago with Diane. It may be that your last user is still corrupt. Maybe your user a month ago is corrupt. And a good question would be, how do I know my user is corrupt? I know we've gone over this before, but I'm reiterating because really nothing is more valuable to you than the knowledge you gain and the user you create while you're in this course. And so if you overwrite the user on a corrupt user, would the user then be corrupt as well? No, you can actually overwrite. If, let's say that you have a good user and you overwrite a corrupt user, the corrupt user's gone and you have a good user. But it's possible to import or overwrite it with another corrupt user, is what I'm saying. Once your user is corrupt, there's no going backwards. There's no undoing that. So you have to have, that's why we suggest you make a copy for each week, you know, and you put it into a new folder and call it, you know, week 4, week 5. If you haven't started by now, no problem. We're in week 5. This is when the metal meets the road, you guys. It's not fun and games anymore. You are now at the speeds that are going to challenge you for real. I know you thought you were challenged in the beginning, but now you are going to really be challenged. These next several weeks are going to be hard. I'm not going to lie to you. The faster, the harder.
How many of you feel it's getting hard? Yeah.
It is. It absolutely is hard. And, you know, anybody who says it's not is not doing the work. When I say this is these next few weeks, I want you to export that user every single week. And when you export it, did you notice that I'm going to do this one more time. I'm sorry for going on and on about this, but it's that important. So when we exported the user, when I exported the user a little while ago, I made a new folder, and I'm going to show you that again. So I'm going to go Profile, Manage User Profiles. And this one hasn't been backed up, so I'm going to do Advanced Backup. I'm sorry, Advanced Export. Now I'm going to go to where I have my DNS user profiles, and you can see that I have one. But over here in the lower left-hand corner of this Browse for Folder window, you see Make New Folder. And so I'm going to click on DNS user profiles, and I'm going to do Make New Folder, and I'm going to call this Desktop Mic Week 5. And then I'm just going to hit enter twice, and it's going to export. So I've made a new folder to put it in, because if you don't make a new folder and you put it in the same folder, it will overwrite. Okay? So it's that easy. That's all you have to do. And so I want you to have a week 5 user profile, a week 6 user profile, a week 7, and a week 8. Because it's that important. Okay? And Michelle, what would you say are signs of corruption? Michelle might be on a call.
I'm not. Sorry, I had pressed my button.
Oh, okay.
So that you didn't hear me like making noise.
Okay.
Because I'm fidgety. So someone in the week was talking about when they were dictating, the markers were not coming up properly. And that is a good indication. First of all, we would look at some things to make sure that there were no additional words in the vocabulary that conflict with the marker. A common thing that happens is when you do voice corrections, if you don't correct to the written form of the word versus the spoken form, that can cause a conflict. And so that's the first thing we would check when someone says markers do not work. But if that is not the case, then it could possibly be a corrupted user. now if it's a new speed, you have to keep in mind that even though your Q's and A's worked at like 180 or 185 and you're up to 200, all of a sudden they're not working, or your diction is going to be a little different because you're just struggling to keep up. And so correction will help. As a matter of fact, I'll give y'all a little anecdote. Back in 2003, we had the opportunity to work with the developers of Dragon Naturally Speaking, because Dragon says that it's designed for 160 words a minute. Nobody speaks faster than that. And so we were able to send user profiles and audio from our court reporters who were dictating 250 words a minute. And they were like, they called us with a room full of people saying, I can't even understand what they're saying. How can Dragon? And so, when you talk faster, you talk a little different. And keep in mind, if you're getting to a new speed, you may have to do more correction than you did in the last one. Correction is what's going to get you more accurate, get those marker workings. And if you've tried that and they're still not working, and then it could possibly be a corrupted user.
Also, corrupted users will not allow you to learn from specific documents. Will a corrupted user let you import a word list, Mitch?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I know that it used to be that it would not let you learn from specific documents. So there are some things that corrupted users just won't let you do.
It's just wonky, and it's not, it could, I'm looking at the pictures. For Shoba, it could do one thing. For Anissa, it could do something completely different. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just when it's doing wonky stuff, you have to figure out what's causing the wonkiness.
Right. Right. So, any other questions today?
Yeah, we got about 9 minutes left for a question, so now's the time to ask them.
Absolutely.
You have our undivided attention.
Yes, indeed.
Hi. When you're doing a dictation, and in your dictation you see things that you didn't see, for example, like speak one or translate one or something like that you never said while you were dictating. What does that mean?
That could be, you may have a real-time rule that's set up that changes. Adele, does it come out in red or is it black when you dictate it?
No, it comes out in the same color the dictated words are in. But
okay. What that means is that Dragon understood something you said as SPI2. And so doing correction mechanism on that utterance will help.
And Irene, what we all get for SPI2 is speak to. That's very common.
Mm-hmm.
Very common. I even have a word swap for it, because there are times when I say speak to that I get speak to. And so we all deal with that. And the more you do correction mechanism, like Michelle says, it will understand the difference. But also sometimes you will find yourself having to say speak to, really hit that ending, that word ending. And sometimes that's what makes the difference. And when you go faster, those higher levels is when we tend to drop off the word endings. And so words tend to meld together and become other words. And we see that a lot, quite frankly.
Okay, Geeta had a question that says, does voicing punctuation while dictating increase accuracy? And the answer to that would be yes, because, part of what Dragon does is contextual. It understands word usage. Like if you say this word, it's expecting that these words are going to precede it. And so by putting in that punctuation, you're saying, okay, stop this contextual analysis. This is the end of this sentence, and I'm moving on to the next one. And so it it kind of tells Dragon, move on from here. So, and we don't go over voicing punctuation a lot in the beginning because getting all the words is more important than the punctuation. But as you go and you move on, dictating punctuation is going to be beneficial to you, but you got to take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
It's baby steps. Markers are the most important thing, and then punctuation can come later.
Where you can throw in punctuation, absolutely do. It's not everyone who naturally punctuates. I'm hoping that Diane will join us again. She's here with us today, and I'm hoping that she will give you guys one more class as we come into these super high speeds, because she's so good for you guys, and I know you love to hear from her. So we're hoping to have her do one more class for you in top speeds and dealing with punctuation and things like that, because nobody knows better how to do that than Diane. And so I'm hoping she will do that for you, and she will help you to get through the super fast speeds and to add that punctuation in, because I tell you, your accuracy is going to go through the roof when you find that you can add punctuation. Diane, do you have a comment in that regard?
I do. First of all, you honor me. Thank you so much. And I want to apologize for popping in and out. We're storming here. I'm assuming that's what it is. Will you remind me of that in a second? May I make one comment about the markers?
Please.
The Q's and the A's and the speakers. I have learned over time that instead of running everything together, Dragon likes to have a difference in inflection. And
I think we may have lost her.
Oh.
We've had some severe weather in that area, and I think there were more tornadoes.
Oh, look, she's back.
Okay.
We've got you back, Diane.
Oh, you didn't hear any of that, huh?
No. We heard, what was the last word?
Something
you were talking about inflection.
Okay. Again, it's a rhythm when you're speaking. For instance, I would say, Cuco, please state your name for the record. Echo, my name is Diane Lane. Cuco, where do you live? Or the same would be true for speed 1. Your Honor, may I ask a question? Speed 2. Your Honor, I ask a question first. Speed 1. Yes, you may. That's not a very good example because I see freezing over here. You may not be hearing me. But the point is infinitesimal pause. Say it with authority. Infinitesimal pause. In my mind, it's a marker, which means this is important. This marks the spot where a change is about to happen. Okay? Now, you asked me something about punctuation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The same is true when I dictate punctuation. It will infinitesimal pause, say it with authority, and then continue on. However, comma, when next you saw them, comma, what were they doing then? Now, I use the full commas and period, and I do change. I don't say question mark because that's 3 syllables. I say quex, which works for me. Everybody's different. In the beginning, I've done this for so long, and I told you about creating habits, forming habits. I can't get out of this habit. I think I've lost you again.
No, you haven't.
I've started dictating to Siri my punctuation, and she doesn't understand Pirk or Quex.
Oh.
Siri's like, what did you say?
That's funny.
I know, because I'm always driving, and I'm always like trying to put punctuation because you can dictate your text, and I'm like, I will be there in a minute, period, or Pirk, and she puts Pierce.
Anyway. That's funny. Okay, you guys, I know we've taken up all of our time with you.
So sorry I butted out on you. I appreciate that. I mean,
Thank you so much, Diane. We do appreciate you. And we are going to work with Diane to hopefully have her come back for another long session so that she can work with you at those higher speeds, and keep asking the questions if they come up. Know that Diane is on the Skype feed as well. So if you have a more of a voice writer question, she is there for you, and we appreciate her. And we appreciate all of you.